What is up, sexy people of the internet? It is Dave, that is me. It is Duncan, that is him, from Metal Epidemic, back for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from UK Merchants of Misery, Grief Ritual. The band's new album, Collapse, will be released on January 31st via Church Road Records. Grief Ritual are more miserable and even heavier than their name might suggest.
It's exactly how my wife described me on New Year's Day. Even more heavier and more miserable than it was the day before. Ain't seen fucking nothing.
Their punishing brand of metalcore twisting, blackened metallic hardcore, and the crushing slower sides of black and death metal to their extremities. On their debut album, Collapse, the anger, frustration, and disenfranchisement they feel about the UK and their wider world are laid bare. Human extinction, capitalism, genocide, ecocide, and the rise of populist right authoritarianism are explored in garish detail across the record. Collapse was self-recorded and mixed by the band alongside Jake Murray at Just Noise Audio, with mastering provided by Brad fucking Boatwright.
We love you, Brad.
Brad. It's the first time I've said your name in 2020.
You better clock this one in right now, Brad, because we expect by June a montage of all the We Love You Brads. So.
Okay. Grief Ritual.
Cheery number,
The debut album from Grief Ritual. I'd never heard the band before, but as soon as I saw Church Road Records were involved, I knew straight away. I was like, okay.
Do I need another vinyl? Yes, I do.
Hello. I kind of knew like that there's like a certain level of quality assurance, that comes with Church Road Records, and it gets me excited whenever I see it. I'm like, okay, looking forward to hearing.
This went through a heavy vetting process to get here, and chances are very strong that I will agree with the decision.
Yes. So Grief Ritual. Whatever your preference is when it comes to like hardcore, for example, whether it be like straight up beatdowns or something more metallic and kind of jagged, or maybe you like your hardcore with a nice little meaty death metal chug, or even something a bit more blackened and grindy. Whatever it is, Grief Ritual have you covered. This is like a concoction of the most nasty, filthy, head-caving hardcore bands that you can think of. If you like your Heriots and your Lifesicks and your Nails and your Ends, then Grief Ritual are exactly what you need in your life right now.
Sits comfortably on that shelf.
It does. Hardcore, like for me, hardcore's where it all started. For me, like this is, I was swapping the hardcore tapes in the 90s, Propane and Turmoil and all that sort of stuff. And since then, like my love for the genre has just kind of grown even more. But I'm loving right now the way that bands are just kind of like evolving the genre, expanding the possibilities of it. Grief Ritual have a blend that is definitely for me worth shouting about. The elements they've chosen and the way they are fused is pretty fucking awesome. And the jump from they did an EP in 2022. The jump from that EP to this debut album is kind of nuts. Like this, when I was listening to this, I was like, how is this their first album? Like this sounds like this should be album 2 or album 3 that I'm listening to right now. It's that well put together, and like you're listening to something brilliant when when there are so many highlights. Like when I am like what behind the curtain here, when I am reviewing an album, on my first listen to that album, I don't take any notes. I don't write anything down, nothing like that. I just listen to it, and I just have it on, and I listen to the album. And then every listen to the album after that, I'll start to kind of take notes of things that have caught my ear, things that kind of stood out. When I played Collapse for the first time, I started writing stuff down on the first listen, on listen 1, because there were so many moments that were kind of. I was like, I need to write these down. I'm going to forget all these moments. There's so many things that just were getting me excited, and like usually, like first and foremost, usually it's like something in the music, like it's like a riff or a rhythm or a switch up that I'm like, oh, it's getting me foaming at the mouth, that riff. But on
that's rabies, Dave.
Shit.
Which, by the way, could be a song title for this album.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it isn't.
But on this album, it was the vocals. The vocals instantly hit me on this album like a 10-ton hammer, son. Like it just.
What was that not cue? No, I'll put the fake guitar then.
Jamie, the vocalist, he has levels. Like at first, I was like, okay,
yeah, he's got levels. You described them all in the upfront, like hardcore, metal, death metal, and black metal. Yeah. And turns out he's really fucking good at all of them.
Yes. And at first I was like, this guy's got a fucking savage, like, hardcore tone. This was really cool. And I would have been happy just to listen to that for the entire album.
Yeah.
And then as it goes on, you're getting fucking disgusting gutturals. He's giving you these, like, scorched earth, mid-range kind of screams. And then, like, in moments he's moving up into that kind of blackened higher register. And then, like, throwing some, like, spoken words. And then some, like, kind of, like, clean, kind of haunting, backing kind of yells. And, like, you've got a vocal performance that is just so complete on this album. Vocally, I thought this was fantastic. The vocal tone should come with a warning, Duncan, because it's sick as fuck.
It's one of those things as well that I think it makes speaking as someone that used to do vocals, it makes the band's job a lot easier if your vocalist has levels that you're not having to try and accommodate.
Yeah.
When you want to, like, everything the band does here is suited so well to what the vocalist performance is and all those ranges. Yeah. So as a result, they can hit you with a Blackened riff, then they can go down at the death metal register. They can chug away as much as they want in the hardcore groove, and they can do it really confidently because they know, not for 1 second, they're going to have a. And it would be very inappropriate if they were doing like the Blackened stuff and they had like a vocalist who, I don't know, sat to the kind of lower mid-range. It just wouldn't fit. And I think that's why this, like, I didn't know this was a debut because I don't read the PR. That kind of fucking blows my mind, but it makes a lot more sense now because when your vocalist can do all that, the world's your fucking oyster.
Yeah. The band are not carrying this guy, is what I'm saying here. Not in the slightest. However, like, on the flip side of that, musically, this is also a fucking monster. And last year we heard albums that could be considered to have a similar kind of DNA as this. Your Nails album, for example, has a kind of comparable level of intensity. You could even throw Knocked Loose into that same ring if you wanted.
Interesting, you said, like you mentioned in the description of bands earlier on, Heriot as well.
Yeah.
Like Heriot are kind of the more refined version of this in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're coming in at a great time. Like if they want to play on great tours. You know what I mean? There's no shortage of bands out there just now that they wouldn't sound like sticking out like a sore thumb on the bill. For sure. So.
Yeah. However, as intense as those bands may be, Grief Ritual have said, hold my beer. because hold it. On album number 1, they're competing with those bands and have delivered something musically that not only gives you an absolute fucking scalping, Duncan. That's right, a scalping. This is like the audio equivalent of a gang initiation. This is like you are gonna just try and weather the beating and hope you make it out on the other side. It's pure violence.
What gangs were you in?
I was in the old YGB, Duncan.
I love that. It's like you had to survive a beating. I had to do Chapdoor Run. like Run, Duncan, he's coming. Like, Dave was taking a beating.
Not in the Grangemouth, Duncan. Not in the Grangemouth. Seriously though, you'll need a week off work after listening to this album. It is so fucking brutal. But aside from that heaviness, it was actually way more varied than I was expecting. They don't just like rinse and repeat throughout the album. They give you like different sides to their sound as you go through the album. Granted, that side is mainly bleak and crushing as fuck, but it's a blast. Like, this album is an absolute blast. I'm not going to go track by track. You'll be happy to hear, which I could easily do on this album.
Well, yeah, you were taking notes from the first listen, which is unheard of.
Yeah, there's literally something on every track I could talk about, but the album starts off in a very kind of like satisfying type of way. Like they stick to the core to begin with, like just the hardcore kind of meets death metal sound. It's very like heavily metallic and very girthy. Lots of like kind of tempo switching, and it generally just kind of keeping the momentum driving forward for the first 2-3 tracks. And then they like start to kind of drip feed in some other elements and ideas. Track 3, Gnaw, actually it kind of floats the idea of like a kind of atmosphere and like space for parts of the song. So you start to get this little feeling of like kind of change on that track. But then Consumed was the first track where I was like, oh, wait a minute, they're actually giving you something that's almost kind of leaning on the kind of industrial side of things.
100%, yes.
It's quite cold and quite mechanical in parts, but the riffs that are coming in and out are just menacing as fuck. But the kind of slower tempo of that track works really well because the guitar work on the following track, which is Fault, it starts to be a bit more kind of generous with the kind of the Blackened influences. There's also a little touch of the kind of Swedish death metal on there as well, but it's got a much quicker tempo, although it's got some really nasty grooves on it as well, and it really just complements Consumed like perfectly. However, my favourite track of the album is track 8, Calcify. It is just a fucking beast of a track.
Scorched earth, Dave.
My God. Again, like it's very mixed in style between hardcore, death metal, Blackened elements and stuff, but there's some really like kind of gloomy background layers going on that really just add to the mood of the track. The ending of the track though is hench in a word. The riffs in the last section just about ended me. It's like to like try to describe it as like very discordant. Like if Ion Dissonance removed all the kind of techie stuff, and just went like slow and brutal, this is kind of how it would sound.
So all the stuff in between the woodly bit.
Yeah, take that out. This is what it'd be like. And the track just gets slower and slower before it comes to an end. It's like fucking, it's last rites kind of stuff. It's like, I'm not religious, Duncan, but I almost asked my wife to phone the priest because it was. I was at that stage. I was like,
he needs to take my confession. But Dave, you weren't baptised. I don't care. He needs to come and take my confession.
I'm seeing the light. After that, you're into like tracks like Swine, which have got like atmosphere in the guitars. It's like a Knocked Loose meets Heriot kind of type of vibe, where there's this like kind of feeling of dread kind of hanging in the background.
If Knocked Loose wrote an American Head Charge B-side, that's Swine.
Yeah. You've got Putrefy, which was another kind of standout track for me. Just had a kind of like LLNN kind of weight as the track slows down in the middle, and it's got this really like kind of like symphonic kind of grandeur about it that just it sounds huge on the track. to be honest, the whole album sounds massive, like from start to finish. Some of the riffs on the closing track on Marrow were just almost like deathcore levels of powerful. When I was listening to that track, it was giving me like flashbacks of hearing Dissension by Aegean for the first time, where it's like just these riffs that are so colossal and dense, but there's an atmosphere in the background that kind of just opens the whole thing up. A lot of that is created in the production, which is excellent on Collapse. I think the band and Jake Murray have done a great job on the recording and the mixing front. Just making sure you really feel the weight of that guitar tone and the thickness of the bass on the album. The bass sounds incredible as well, and the vocals are just annihilating on this album. Like, end of story. Like Brad, no surprise, like knocks it out of the park on the mastered front.
Yeah.
Just made sure the album sounds consistent the whole way through. There's no like frequencies that are fighting with each other. It sounds like production wise is immense, like across the board. Yeah, this is kind of fucking amazing. The quality of music that came out last year was insane. Like 2024 was nuts. If this is an indication of what 2025 is going to be like, we're fucked, Duncan. It's going to be.
I know we're going to do it for an upcoming podcast, but I looked at the list of like anticipated bands releasing albums this year, and I was just like, I have the time.
Yeah,
like
I know.
It's gonna cut into my solo time, Dave, and I don't know if I'm happy about that.
But yeah, just like well played, lads. Like you absolutely killed it. And the fact this is a debut album is just blows my fucking mind. Yeah, bravo. Duncan, what did you think of Collapse by Grief Ritual?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier on, and you've already mentioned earlier to that. If Heriot had an ugly stepbrother, this would be it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is. It has like a lot of crossover DNA, specifically in the use of industrial, which is there right from the very. It's not something that sneaks in. Spiral starts with some kind of quasi-industrial loops in the background.
Yeah.
And what I like every time a band does that, Dave, I'll be honest with you, my eyes roll a little bit because I'm like, are you gonna follow through it? Are you gonna tease me with something? You're gonna bring it the nipple clamps but no attach them. Yeah, I mean, well, what are we doing here? Is this kind of flawed foreplay? Are you gonna follow through with it? No. Everything the band set up on almost every track is revisited in some way, shape, or form or fashion. So it's never a dalliance or a kind of a passing of any particular idea, style, genre, or whatnot. It's fledged out. It's in their DNA. It's in their sound.
Yeah.
So, and those bits. One of the reasons the Heriot album landed so strong for me was the fact that they managed to marry those industrial elements, a genre that I fucking love, and in a way where it kind of just felt organic and natural. And industrial, as always, you mentioned LLNN earlier on. That's a band that really flirt a lot with that. In fact, pretty much married with 3 kids and a dog at this rate, and like a heavy mortgage. That's LLNN. That's how much they incorporate that in their sound. It's in here, but it's really smartly used. Vocally, like I feel like I'm just covering things you've already said. Vocally, this album is dauntingly good, to the point that you kind of I'm waiting to find that there's 7 vocalists or something, which would make sense to my brain. But just the dexterity and the delivery and the command of the voice is just it's so impressive. And like I say, when you have a vocalist that can do that, as a band, the options to go anywhere are kind of limitless. And they do it in a really, really interesting way, a really fun way at times as well. Yeah. Like, and not fun because it's making me smile, but fun because I'm almost kind of nervously laughing at how heavy this gets at points.
Yeah.
Like, you just think you've just uncovered the heaviest riff on this album, and within about a minute and a half, there's something even more disgustingly heavy just rears its head, like that Chihuahua gif. The dog's like, it's so just fucking relentless. The switch ups and the way the songs incorporate those elements are really, really smart. Once again, something you would expect a band more in their veteran years better at. So just their handle over that, and the fact that they themselves are taking so much of a lead in the way the album has been recorded is remarkable. Doesn't surprise me Brad Boatwright's on this, because maybe no one else better in the game at the moment that you could say, oh yeah, we're hardcore and metallic hardcore and death metal and black metal and industrial and go. And sometimes it's all in one song. And just the leveling on this is just fucking, it's chef's kiss good. It just feels volatile. The entire release feels like a bottle of Sprite you've shaken up and then handed it to someone without telling them, and you're like that. No, you open it. Go and open it, and then you're like it feels like at any second this could come off in the nastiest fucking way. It's really well paced as well for an album that is as bleak as it is. It's surprisingly moreish. I never got to the point where I was like bleak fatigue set, and I was like, oh. I've listened to this in the good times and the bad, Dave. In the last week, where I returned to work about a week ago, and I'm just like, oh fuck my life, put it on. But at the end of a shift as well, when you've got a weekend before the next, it plays really really well, which is once again a testament to really good songwriting. We saw a lot of great extreme and hardcore releases last year. And you could be skeptical and say it's lightning in a bottle. Apparently not, because we're kicking off with our best foot forward again on this one. And as a last kind of comment overall, Church Road Records is not just a stamp of quality. If you're one of the few and the proud out there that listen to us on the internet and you still haven't checked out the bands that this label, there's a reason we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about Church Road Records, and it's because we've yet to come across an album that hasn't connected. I'll tell you right now, not one of those bands sound alike to the other one before. They're really, 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 really good at kind of bringing to your attention, the listener, bands that are about to explode. And Grief Ritual is certainly one of those bands.
The show. So, final thing, Duncan. Ratings for Collapse by Grief Ritual. Well, the benchmark has now been set.
Not the benchmark, the henchmark.
The henchmark.
The henchmark has been set.
Bands, this is what you're up against. From now on, I will ask myself, is this as good as Collapse by Grief Ritual? And if not, get yourself in the fucking bin. Kidding, but this legit rips, and it is the best thing I've heard in 2025 so far. For that reason, it's getting my first 5-star rating
sweeties
of 20.
Like confetti flung at a wedding, just a bit.
First one of the year, and it goes to this album because it's fucking awesome. Duncan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's a 5. I give Heriot a 5. And like I say, I would put this on the same level as that. Different bands, but I think they're performing at the same level already, which is... UK's fucking spoiled, man. We really, really are. But yeah, if this is a precursor to what we have to look forward to for the entire year, I may have to buy instead of a swear jar, a 5 jar. I put a 10 in it as a way to discourage me from giving out 5s. But yeah, this is fucking absolutely awesome. And if anything encapsulates the world is on fire as we record in the worst fucking way. If there's ever an album to play in the soundtrack in the background, it's Collapse by Grief Ritual. 5.
Yeah, sounds fitting. Out on January 31st on Church Road Records. Links to the band below, link to the pre-order below, link to one of the singles below. Check it out, have a listen, and just let it blow your mind, because Grief Ritual have arrived in 2025. That is the review. Go forth and pre-order it and buy some vinyl, because it's hella sexy. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We will be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.